Welcome to part 2 of Heroes as Personas. If you didn't watch part 1 yet, I recommend you do that first because this video might seem pretty far-fetched without it, so that's in the description and on screen if I was able to do that correctly. So, Boku no Hero Academia as a coming-of-age story is centered around the idea of striving towards an ideal who is actually a persona. However, we see in aspiring heroes such as Midoriya that he is aiming to be a hero by being himself, not something he's not. This irony leads to a few interesting questions. Firstly, if the ideal doesn't truly exist, then are hero personas inevitable, or will our main characters stay true to themselves even as they reach the top? Secondly, what role do these personas play in society? So in order to explore these ideas, let's focus on the recurrence of fallen heroes in the series. Typically, fallen hero refers to a former good guy who is now evil, and we'll get to that later in the video, but for now we're still talking about the same thing I discussed in part 1 of this video. The idea that the pro-heroes so idolized by the main characters are ultimately imperfect people hiding behind facades. In part 1, we discussed the idea of All Might as a persona and how Midoriya is striving to embody the ideal hero that All Might does. However, as Recovery Girl states in the latest episode, Midoriya basically considers All Might a god. He looks up to him a little too much, unable to see the differences between Toshinori and All Might. It's symbolic that Midoriya always refers to All Might as All Might, rather than using his actual name, whether he's in muscular form or not, and whether they're in private or not. We also see other characters in Midoriya's generation being inspired by All Might, such as Todoroki and Bakugo. Even Endeavor, who wants to surpass All Might, is in a way also striving towards an ideal. The imperfection of the adult characters is being highlighted in juxtaposition with the idol status given to them by the child characters, creating a certain irony to their characterization and raising one of the questions I mentioned at the beginning of the video. If this ideal they are striving towards doesn't truly exist, what will ultimately come of their quests? Will they take on personas as well in order to exactly match the ideal, or will they become heroes who are also allowed to be flawed? I don't know where this is going as I have not read the manga, and obviously the story isn't finished yet, but an interesting avenue to explore could be the idea that Midoriya should not strive to be like All Might. I'm sure eventually Midoriya will have to come to terms with the idea of surpassing the hero he idolizes, as students surpassing teachers is a pretty common trope in these kinds of stories. However, one of the most jarring lines in the show, at least to me, was Toshinori outright stating to Midoriya that his smile is a facade, yet his ability to smile in the face of danger was one of the qualities that a younger Midoriya pointed to as being especially worthy of praise. So should Midoriya really go into battle with a smile, if that smile is a lie? The Pedantic Romantic recently made a video on the role of scars in Boku no Hero Academia, and if you haven't already seen it, a link will be in the description. One of his points that stood out to me was the idea of scars as a physical representation of struggle and how important they are to character arcs in this series. In his words, visual testaments to their own shortcomings and hang-ups. This idea is especially important when contrasting the way Midoriya, Ida, and Todoroki handle scars versus the way All Might does. All Might ensures that only Toshinori is scarred. No one except a choice few know that All Might is dying. However, in the hospital following the Stain fight, Midoriya and Ida resolve to allow their scars to lead them, to learn from their past and not hide the lessons that they learned. Midoriya thinks to himself that he will allow his scarred hand to guide him, implying not only that his scarred hand is not a flaw, but an asset that will help him move forward. Ida even refuses surgery to fix his damaged brachial plexus because he sees how far he must go before he wants to call himself a hero, and agrees that he wants to remember his scars and use them to become stronger. Todoroki looks on in amazement, possibly foreshadowing later development between him and Endeavor, but that's another video. They see their imperfections as vital to becoming true heroes, while the hero they idolize considers it vital to hide his imperfections. Now let's take a minute to talk about Bakugo. He really does smile in the face of danger. He seems to derive a sense of exhilaration from fighting. I could do a whole character analysis video about how Bakugo's confidence is ultimately narcissism designed to hide his inferiority complex, but while I could argue that this is his facade, it doesn't seem like Bakugo is very aware of it, so I'm not going to treat it as a persona for this video. However, the latest episode delved a little deeper into his personal philosophy about heroism, and it contrasts a lot with the recurring theme of fallen heroes. He thinks that the definition of a true hero is that they win. It's hard to tell where the author is going with this as of right now, but right now, I could argue that this philosophy puts Bakugo and Endeavor in a similar boat. To them, being the number one hero is more important than your motives for being a hero. All this parallelism of the older generation of heroes and the newest makes Stain the perfect antagonist. He's a fallen hero in the traditional sense, in that he was once a, quote, good guy, but is now a, quote, villain. He's not quite as old as All Might and Endeavor, but is not a student anymore either, showcasing another path that the students could possibly go down. This is where we start getting into that second question. What impact do hero personas have on society? Stain really highlights the difference between a persona and an identity, since his entire quest is to purge heroes who aren't truly in hero work in order to help others. Stain perceives All Might as a true hero because, though he is to a degree a facade, his heart is ultimately in the right place. Stain is calling for a return to the original definition of a hero that is centered on a genuine desire to help others. Stain also has a universal feeling to him because he embodies a feeling that the target audience of this show commonly deals with. disillusionment towards a system, whether it be a system of government, social structure, or in Stan's case, the hero system. A fundamental aspect of coming-of-age stories like Boku no Hero Academia is the battle between idealism and reality. The realization that heroes might not be exactly who we think they are, and that the world isn't perfect because human beings are flawed. Stan and Midoriya contrast each other in that both go against the system with the same core belief that heroism is about helping others, but their choice of action puts them at odds with each other. It is mentioned that Stan, before becoming Stan, took to the streets as an orator, condemning the hero system and the motivations of the majority of pro-heroes, but no one listened, furthering his disillusionment with society. While Stan chooses to kill those he deems unworthy, Midoriya never loses sight of his goal of helping and inspiring others, choosing not to hide behind facades, never to forget his hardships, and to use those hardships to grow and become stronger. Both are aware that the world is not fair, as Midoriya says not all men are created equal, but they have reactions that put them at odds with each other. It will be very interesting to see how this theme develops in the future. Now back to the original question. What role do hero personas play in society? We see with Stan that the heavy facades overlaying the hero system and the pro-heroes themselves can create disillusionment with the system, bringing up that old question often mentioned in American hero stories: do heroes ultimately deter villains or create them? When looking at All Might, who is referred to as the symbol of peace, it seems that the answer is that heroes deter villains. However, this brings into question the importance of honesty in the protectors of society. Is it good to lie if it brings about peace? We see recurring dishonesty in Toshinori's character, as mentioned before, but also in the way that he deals with Midoriya. Understandably, he has great difficulty telling Midoriya that his time is running out much faster than Midoriya thinks. We also see him withholding a lot of his backstory. He only mentioned Gran Torino because he had to, and we know something mysterious happened to the 7th holder of One for All, and it was probably something terrible if he or she wasn't even able to fully train Toshinori. Toshinori expects Midoriya to eventually take on the mantle of Symbol of Peace, but what's interesting about this persona is that All Might is not treated as a protector of an idea, but a physical manifestation of an idea, which a real person cannot be. Toshinori is trying to pass this gigantic torch to Midoriya, but is having an inner battle between telling Midoriya the truth about how weak he is really becoming, and allowing Midoriya to have the comfort of believing that All Might will be there for him when it comes time to fight All for One. In other words, the theme of reality versus idealism is coming up again. What is the best way to pass responsibility for society onto the next generation? So that's about it for this video on Boku no Hero Academia as a coming-of-age story. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, but no manga spoilers, please. Also, if you have any advice for me on how to better organize these videos, I'm all ears, because... So, thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed. Bye!